Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Blackbird. Here tonight we have again Elizabeth and Micah and Joe. This is a pre-recorded one, so we won't see your comments until later, but we will do our best to answer any and all questions. And as always, any ideas that you have for things that you'd like us to talk about, hit us up on YouTube or Facebook, and we will try and do those things. As always, this was created as a way for us to talk about the current situation, what's going on, with a view as to how we got here by looking through our history and discussing it through social media and media in general. So, reading books, looking at movies, listening to music. Today, we're going to be discussing the Black Panther movement, or Black Panther Party. Okay. Black Panther Party. As sort of a spin-off or a more in-depth version of the book that we read last week. So, any other housekeeping things I'm forgetting, Micah?
I think just go to the Facebook if you have suggestions for topics or you have questions or comments. There's going to be some links below the video in the description of stuff that we found, like articles that we found if you need further reading. That's it.
That's it. All right, so let's get into it. Black Panther Party. So first, let's talk about what, if anything, did you learn about the Black Panthers in school?
I don't think we learned anything in school. So, my impressions of the Black Panther Party is that they were scary people with guns.
Yeah, I think the only impression I had was from Forrest Gump. But we all went to the same high school, so if you guys got it, I didn't. But I don't remember learning anything about the Black Panthers in high school.
What about you, Joe?
Nah. Coming from a black family or in high school or nothing. There was not a mention of nothing of the Black Panther Party. I will say on the Forrest Gump reference, though, if that was truly what happened, Forrest Gump would have got dealt with. He wouldn't have been It was awesome what he did, but yeah, that was total movie magic right there. I think he was not left out of there.
The joke was he's like, I'm sorry for fighting at your Black Panther Party. But yeah.
Favorite line, by the way. But yeah, I digress. But no, I didn't. Did anybody hear anything from high school? Because I don't think that's one of the tenets that they were talking about is the proper education. Because high school and, for that matter, all school that I came up with, there was a very little black education of history unless it supported some type of white system or something like that. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
I think the only time, and I feel like it was probably in my family life, that we talked about it was maybe during Black History Month. Maybe somebody said something about it. I could be making that up. But I feel like if it were going to happen, that's when I would have heard about it. It was during Black History Month. So, that being the situation, a lot of people don't know about the Black Panther parties, or Micah said, or Elizabeth said, or even me. And the thing that I knew prior to doing this was that they were scary. Black Panthers were scary and they hated white people. That's what I knew before delving into research and reading the book. So why don't we start with what they stood for? So the Black Panthers had a 10-point program that was their ideology and what they were fighting for and the reasons for doing what they were doing. Micah, you want to read the first one?
Yeah, so the first one is, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black and oppressed communities. Oh my God. Sorry.
and then they go on. So with each of these points, they explain them a little further. So we believe that Black and oppressed people will not be free until we are able to determine our destinies in our own communities ourselves by fully controlling all the institutions which exist in our communities.
The second one is we want full employment for our people.
And then the explanation that they give for that is we believe that the federal government is responsible and obligated to give every person employment or a guaranteed income. We believe that if the American businessman will not give full employment, then the technology and means of production should be taken from the businessman and placed in the community so that the people of the community can organize and employ all of its people and give a high standard of living.
Number three.
Joe's shaking his head. I gotta know, Joe, what's going on there?
I think it's outlandish to ask for that. You know, like in a certain aspect. Yes, you want employment and job opportunities. Cool, but so further tenants. But we know that there's a lack of education to a big extent. There's a lack of education. The communities are kind of substandard, but you want to just pull business from businessmen and say like, no, we're going to put this in our community and we're going to know how to do it and we're going to handle it. And, you know, it just seems very, not aggressive, just ill thought out in my perspective. The way I perceive it, it just seems ill thought out. Just, you know, maybe you want to be like, hey, you know, where affirmative action is in the hiring process or what have you. You know what I mean? We just want more opportunities to better ourselves and provide for our families. But to demand that it be the government needs to guarantee you a high standard of living and guarantee you full employment, it's like, okay, yeah, I was like, I'm listening, but I ain't hearing you, bro. I ain't hearing. And that's just me. I'm sorry. That is illogical in my particular, the way I compute it. It's illogical to ask something that extreme. I get where he's coming from, but
I think I looked at it more as like if I don't know, like there's oil or something in a community, and then a business comes in and doesn't hire any of the people in that community to handle any of it, and so all of the money that is, you know, this product, this, you know, what's the word I want?
I get that. So, you know, in a resource of that nature, that makes sense.
That's what
makes sense.
I guess that's the way that I sort of viewed it, is that like if there's a resource that is in one community and someone comes in and sucks all of that out and the community doesn't benefit from the fact that that's where the resource is, then that's wrong. That I can agree with. I didn't see it as such, so I'm glad that we're able to kind of, you know, bounce ideas off of each other, because in that aspect it makes sense. But I don't know. I don't think there was a whole bunch of that. A lot of the oil and stuff is not in. I don't want to say not in those areas, but we're talking more inner city than you know, rural opportunities, I think. But either way, still seems a bit extreme. It could have been reworded for me, I guess. But that being said, I appreciate that viewpoint because that lessens the illogical to me a bit. So
I was going to say, so like two things are like, one, I do think they're coming from like a purely communist perspective, which like, yeah, it's probably not going to work. Like that's probably too extreme, but like I think that's where they're coming from. But also something I hadn't even considered, but was like affirmative action was not a thing yet.
No,
so yeah. And I think that's what I was hearing on something I was listening to today was like, that's kind of what dissolved the party was like affirmative action. Like, so, I think some of the things that they wanted put in place started getting put in place. So, yeah, I agree.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, we want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our Black and oppressed communities.
We believe that this, my We believe that this racist government has robbed has robbed us, and now we are demanding the overdue debt of 40 acres and 2 mules. 40 acres and 2 mules was promised 100 years ago as restitution for slave labor and mass murder of black people. We will accept the payment in currency, which we will distribute in our minority communities. The American races have taken part in the slaughter of our 50 million black people. Therefore, we feel this is a modest demand that we make.
Number 4 is we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings.
Yes. We believe that if the landlord will not give decent housing to our black and oppressed communities, then housing and the land should be made into cooperatives so that the people in our communities with government aid can build and make decent housing for the people.
Number 5, we want decent education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present-day society.
We believe in an educational system that will give to our people a knowledge of the self. If you do not have knowledge of yourself and your position in the society and in the world, then you will have little chance to know anything else.
So this is the one that Joe was talking about that we're missing.
Yeah, so being biracial, I really only knew about, especially in the South, Custer and Lee, and you get into your presidents, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. You know what I'm saying? That's about all in the history books that they really told you, except that if you don't comply and you don't stay there and be a slave, if you try to escape, they're gonna stick the dogs and all that kind of stuff. And Harriet Tubman was cool because she took the fight of her people on her back, but at the same time was a criminal because she broke the law. It's like, it's such a dichotomy of what they teach you. And so you're like, okay, Harriet Tubman good, right? Because she was taking something that was bad and she was trying to help people escape freedom and persecution and trouble, right? Yes, but she was also bad because she was breaking the law and put other people in danger. It's like, okay, well, want to help me? You're confusing me with your own teaching. And it goes back to them not teaching proper.
Yeah.
I don't know myself. I don't know my heritage because it's not taught. And therefore, as they said in the tenet, you are not going to know much else if you don't know yourself.
Right.
And in the education system, I really don't think that they have to teach Black history in college because they're not going to offer it publicly to the people. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's like interesting too, because then even like it's not a required course in college. Like you can opt to take that course, but it's not like it's not mandatory for you to graduate college. And I think when a lot of people talk about like, well, why don't we have White History Month or whatever? It's like because you wrote the books,
right?
And we wouldn't need Black History Month if our history was complete, right? If we taught all of our history in a complete way, there wouldn't need to be a Black History Month because you know all that stuff in your history class, rather than taking a month out of the year, the shortest month. And how are you going to? Like that Black History Month has always confused me. I'm like, how are you going to encompass
everything
about Black history in a month when you only go to that class, like every other day? Right?
I was going to say minus the weekends, that's 8 days. So,
right? How are you possibly going to learn everything? There's no way. And like the thing that also irritates me about Black History Month is that you learn about the same 5 people over and over and over again. And I think at some point my brain was like, they're got to be more Black people in the world.
Well, not even that, but it's American Black history. So in that regard, how much did you learn about European, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Norway, the Spanish Inquisition, and all of these things, the British rule and their empire, feudalism, and all this kind of stuff. I don't know what happened to my people in Africa at all. I don't know how their society was. They were kings and queens and had their own way that society goes. Prosperous, mind you. It wasn't, excuse me, I apologize. It wasn't just savages killing each other, just like Native Americans or South Americans or whatever in Indian villages.
Communities and cities, and
we have no idea of society over there, other than there were warring tribes, and some of those tribes captured other people and helped enslave their own. I want to say their own people, but it was really, people they were warring with. But still, I don't know how any of that went down.
Right.
And to have the same 5 people, as you say, historically taught in a month that is 28 days long on standard, and then, not to even have any other history be even approached, it's the education point is a very serious one, and that stands even to this day. It is appalling and substandard that Black culture is just not American culture now. Like in the pop culture it is and everything else, but in an educational sense it is not. We still don't want to know too much, and I don't know if that's because of the educational, maybe it's still a lot of white people that run that, and maybe because I think there is a condition of white guilt, and the more Black, I'm getting off topic. I just feel like sometimes the white guilt thing is so prevalent because they think like, oh, well, if we do this, then Black people are just going to rise up and then they're going to enslave us and it's all over. It's like, no, we just want the same. It's like, we just want the same. It's not going to come back to bite you. Just enlighten everyone. Let it be for everybody.
Let it be for everybody. And I think, so that's a big one, I think, too, when they talk about education.
Right.
All right.
Number 6.
Number 6.
We want completely free healthcare for all Black and oppressed people.
We believe that the government must provide free of charge for the people health facilities which will not only treat our illnesses, most of which have come about as a result of our oppression, but which will also develop preventative medical programs to guarantee our future survival. We believe the mass health education and research programs must be developed to give all Black and oppressed people access to advanced scientific and medical information so we may provide ourselves with proper medical attention and care. So I'm just going to real quick at this, that's going to take forever. So I was talking to, I think maybe Elizabeth or someone about healthcare in America and the research studies that are done. Because like every year I feel like it's this new thing, right? So like now it's like, oh, you're low in vitamin D. Like you got to take all this vitamin D. And it's like, well, I'm not a white person. Like maybe my body doesn't need as much vitamin D as someone with fairer, lighter skin. You know what I mean? Like and I think other people hear that and they're like, well, that's racist. I'm like, but our bodies are different, right? My skin is different. My body processes vitamin D differently. So how can you say that I need the same amount of vitamin D as Micah or as Elizabeth? You have no idea because you didn't study people of color. You know what I mean? And so I like that one, number 6 just really hit me. There are not a lot of studies that are done where they take information. I think what they do a lot of times is like they do a broad range study and then they take the average. And I think it's worth looking at like, okay, so, of this 100 people, like 70 of them were black, and this is the way they reacted. And so if you're treating a black patient, like, this is the number you need to look at. Not the average number, but this number from these 70 people. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Just like a cultural thing. So, you want to have 20 Hispanic, 20 Asian, 20 white, 20 black, and then, reference each cultural result, and you can have an average and a cultural average as well. Just
right.
To give it credence to everybody, because, although Hispanics may not need the vitamin D as you were illustrating earlier, they probably don't have the same rate of blood pressure, cholesterol, or anything else either.
Right.
So everybody's process is different. And I just think in the whole tenet of that, it should just across the board just be fair for everybody. But yeah, free healthcare, wow, what a concept. Have you seen those videos where they ask like English or European people how much they pay for certain medications, and then they ask them how much we as Americans pay for those medications, and they are like flabbergasted with how our medical system is. They're like, but they're like, it's a free world, and they have everything. Why do they pay so much? And it's just, side note, look that up, because it's amazing. It's amazing. We are getting duped, people.
All right, number 7.
Number 7, we want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people, other people of color, all oppressed people inside the United States.
We believe that the racist and fascist government of the United States uses its domestic enforcement agencies to carry out its program of oppression against black people, other people of color, and poor people inside the United States. We believe it is our right, therefore, to defend ourselves against such armed forces, and that all black and oppressed people should be armed for self-defense and of our homes and communities against these fascist police forces. That's a tongue twister.
Could you imagine if this had happened in the 1960s? If we had an immediate end to all police brutality and murder of black people? Like,
then some of the people I've argued with on Facebook might actually have a point. Like, if it had actually ended in the 60s like they think it did. They changed laws, so, like, it's all fine now, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Number 8?
Yeah.
Immediate end to all wars of aggression.
We believe that the various conflicts which exist around the world stem directly from the aggressive desire of the United States ruling circle and government to force its dominion upon the oppressed people of the world. We believe that if the United States government or its lackeys do not cease these aggressive wars, it is the right of the people to defend themselves by any means necessary against their aggressors.
I think the interesting side note on this one is this was during the Vietnam War.
Right.
Not that it's not true today, but the Vietnam War was good.
Yeah, we're still doing it.
Team America, World Police.
Yeah. I think it's is that in this point, or is this some I can't remember, because this is like they're also talking about the draft, right? In this one, like it's sort of mixed in with that point.
Yeah, because a lot of Black Panthers refused to participate in the draft.
Yeah. And a lot of so I think that's part of it. It's like there's the draft, and so that's why I think part of the reason that they're asking for the end of this, because if you had enough money or you could go to Canada, then you didn't have to be drafted, right? You could find a way out of it. Where
look at the current resident.
Huh?
Look at the current resident.
A lot of people of color, especially blacks, couldn't afford that. And so they're, being shipped off to Vietnam. to fight people, like, you know, they have no stake in. One of those, like, why are we here? I'd rather not die. Can I just go home?
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And, like, I know I read it somewhere else, but that's part of, like, this statement is that they want an end to the draft, because they don't feel like they should have to fight in wars that they're not a part of or have no stake in. So, all right, number 9.
No, oh, wait.
Oh.
I wanted to expand on that. 2 points to what you were saying is that, first of all, it's 1965 in the Watts riots. You know, a lot of that contributed to people not wanting to go to the war, because obviously you're seeing what type of aggression is being used against your community right here at home, yet they want you to fight for their interest abroad and won't even fight for you. Not only if you go over there and fight, survive, and come back, they won't fight for you, but they didn't fight for you when you were here in the first place.
Right.
And like Muhammad Ali said, I'm the champ of the world. Now, I'm not going to fight your war because I have no problem with those people. You are the people who oppress me. You are the people who won't serve me, tell me I'm less than, and this, that, and the other. Why should I go fight your war? And I think that is definitely some of the urging points for Bobby Seale and for Huey P. Newton to create the the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And initially is to stop police brutality, but also to pick up and fight for the community that nobody else was fighting for.
Right. And they're, I mean, you have to think about that too. Like, they're of age, right? They're of drafting age when this is all happening. This is a very real thing for them to potentially have been drafted.
Absolutely.
All right. Number 9.
Number 9. We want freedom for all Black and oppressed people now held in U.S. federal, state, county, city, and military prisons and jails. We want trials by a jury of peers for all persons charged with so-called crimes under the laws of this country.
We believe that the many Black and poor oppressed people now held in United States prisons and jails have not received fair and impartial trials under a racist and fascist judicial system and should be freed from incarceration. We believe in the ultimate elimination of all wretched, inhuman penal institutes because of the masses of men and women imprisoned inside the United States or by the United States military are the victims of oppressive conditions which are the real cause of their imprisonment. We believe that when persons are brought to trial, they must be guaranteed by the United States juries of their peers, attorneys of their choice, and freedom from imprisonment while awaiting trial. So, I, for one, when, like, the first time I read this one, I was like, you can't just let everybody out. Like, well, that's ridiculous. But I do understand their point. Is so we were talking about shoot, I forgot his name.
I would offer names, but
well, so there was a man who was, I think he was one of the, like, part of so there was a man who was shot by the police. They said he was running away and jumped a fence. His family was like, he's got a bad hip. There's no way he was running or jumping any fences.
Is Erica Huggins' brother?
Yes, Huggins' brother. So they, the police officer went on trial, and so it was 10 jury members, 2 of which were Black. And so I do understand, like, that point of view of, like, you say I'm supposed to be trialed by my peers, they're not on the jury, right? My peers who understand the situation, who may be able to rationalize my thinking or whatever in the situation, aren't on the jury. And if my peers aren't on the jury, then how legitimate is this conviction? When I'm guaranteed underneath the Constitution a trial by my peers. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
To go even further than that. So in 1970, I want to say, I believe it was 1970. Bobby Seale was accused to be like ordering a hit on who they thought was a snitch in the Black Panther Party, and he ended up getting murdered, right? And they gave him a public defender, and he was like, I should have the right to choose my own defensive legal team or what have you. And they put him in contempt of court, like 46. He had 46 counts of contempt of court, and they bound and gagged him every time he spoke up for himself, because all he wanted to do was hire his own defense team to be able to select his own counsel. And not to mention, with your very poignant statement about jury of your peers, but not only that is, think about the conditions that it was back then. Did you have your own peers in said prison jail system that were going to protect you against a white prison population, most likely racist and using slurs, and it forces you into a even more confined community, and there's still nobody there to protect you if they choose to come up with prison shanks or whatever weaponry people create in there. Not to mention nobody wants to go to prison. I'm not saying I want to go to prison. I'd rather go to prison today than I would rather go to prison back then. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? And jury of your peers and some of those convictions, it could have been as simple as saying hi to a white lady. And, instead of killing you, they just put you in prison for 5 years. You know what I mean? But here I go. I'm trying to stop that. Doesn't matter what the crime was. If they felt that if they wanted to convict you and imprison you for a long time, there was nobody to stop them. There was no fairness or opportunity to get you the justice that you are entitled to,
Number 10?
Yeah. Number 10. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, peace, and people's community control of modern technology.
Okay, this is a long one. But I like it. All of these, I feel like their explanations are very eloquent and very thought out. And I like the way that this one starts. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And so, like, that's straight political. What is that from? I don't know what it's from, but it's
Declaration of Independence.
But is all of it from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's I did mean to go back and see, it does seem not exactly the same, but
right. I think
yeah.
The start of it is
language is the same.
And then but anyway. So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's interesting here that they don't say men and women. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are most disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuse and usurpation, I can't say that word, pursuing the same object, evidence a design to reduce them under absolute disposition is right. It is their duty to throw off such government to provide new guards of their future sanctuary. So it's like basically I feel like number 10 is like we want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which you said we had, which we're guaranteed, but you're not giving to us. Right? That's in a nutshell.
Well, when it says all, that's that key word, all.
All.
It's like all of us, not all of you. No, all of us. People who are writing this, all of us, not all of y'all. All of y'all stay in them fields. Don't worry about what we doing. We're gonna give you the scraps. We're gonna give you the leftovers. We're gonna keep letting you work for our businesses and towing the line and building this great nation. But yeah, you're gonna get no credit. Y'all just stay right there. It meant for us, not you. That's what we're still fighting for right now, is to try to undo that perception.
Yes.
It's come a long way, but it ain't over.
Right. Absolutely. Totally. So I know we talked about some of them as we were going through them, but there anything else like that like struck you or that you wanted to reiterate or talk about again as far as their 10 points go?
I think it's interesting that the language is so strong. Like it's not a compromise; it's demands. And I know that can be sort of off-putting, but it's sort of like what you have to go for, right? You need to be strong and like make demands for change.
And I think what you said earlier is like, not only demand what's necessary, but even overreach, as we were talking earlier, to, go for it all.
Yeah.
See what comes back, but go for it all. And so when you said that, it made me think, if you're going to quote unquote in the modern term shoot your shot, if you will, you got to
go big or go home.
you got to put it out there.
I think like we should make no mistake, the party wanted to overthrow the U.S. government and institute socialist rule. Like they weren't fucking around.
Very Marxist based.
Yeah.
Very Marxist based.
Yeah. I think that is important to note because I think there are a lot of things in here where you're like, oh, yes, like their end mean was to overthrow the government, which is the wrong wordage. I feel like though, and maybe this is just me, and today and now, like, I feel like it's coming personally, or something is coming.
Well, that I think we can all take. I don't know if you necessarily use comfort as the word, but you can be comfort in that knowledge that yes, a change is a coming. A change is a coming. And I don't know how that's going to look or feel. I hope it can happen without without all the violence and persecution of anybody, whether it be, I don't want it to be this big cultural divide. I just want smart people to come to the forefront and be like, hey, we can't do this anymore. And you don't necessarily have to overthrow the government as it exists right now, but you need to get people in place that can enforce the way it is supposed to be ran. The ideology and the premise is on proper foundation.
Yeah.
I think it's been overlooked and allowed some corruption to seep in, and once it's seeped in further, and it's gotten so disjointed of being of the people, for the people, by the people, that we the people have kind of lost control.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think there's a lot of, like, when you talk about comfort, right? There are a lot of people in America who are comfortable, you know, and it's hard. You like you can't have a revolution with only one person, right? You need everybody, or at least a majority. And I think now, especially, we're getting to that point where you have to, I'm not going to say pick sides, but sort of. Like, you have to realize that things are wrong and you have to make a choice to fix it. Like, by voting, by protesting, by whatever means you have. Not whatever means you have. Sorry. Not whatever means. Not that. But by getting involved, right? And I think the time for sitting on the sidelines is past.
There's only so much I'm willing to do. I was arguing with some friends over posting about the young man in Kenosha, whether it be the 17-year-old with the assault rifle who ended up killing two and wounding another, and them defending his actions, even though it started off criminal the whole way. You're 17 with a particular gun that even would be difficult for me, legal in every way, to own a gun. I would still have to wait probably a week or two to get a firearm like that, and to cross state lines with it, with the intent. I mean, you don't carry that into that and be confrontational in that capacity unless you're, going to be there. And anyway, I was arguing with some people, and I just have to stop. I can't engage with them anymore. And I can only do so much because I still have fear that I'm going to get caught up in that sometime,
Joe, I'm so sorry. I was making crazy faces. I'm outside. I apologize. I'm outside. There's a giant praying mantis.
It's cool.
I apologize.
I was just looking at you and Elizabeth, and I'm just trying to, y'all had me sidetracked for a second, and I'm like, okay.
So sorry.
I was like, is there a secret chat? Are they joking and typing stuff? And I was like, I want to know the joke.
Look on her face is like, there's a bug. I don't know what kind of bug it is, but I know that.
It's like, so here, the serious part did not, and all forgiven, no worries.
Right.
The point I was trying to make was that even arguing with some of these individuals on whether to support him or not, which I don't see how you can, beside the point. There was no way that he should have been shot 7 times in his back. He wasn't going for a knife. From my point of view, he was on the driver's side, was he not? Not the passenger side. But I'm tired of feeling like if I encounter law enforcement, I might not go home to my family, or I might get shot in front of my family. Yeah. And I don't care what statistics or how amongst the black population it's only like less than 1% and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, but it's happening more than it should. I don't care if it's like 1,000%. There's too many. Nobody should be shot, for trying to do a good deed. But even then, I don't know, man. It's just too much. Just too much, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I can't. So I'm detracting from all those people. I can't. I don't have the energy to deal with that. And I don't know if Micah or you, Elizabeth, have friends that are justifying whatever is going on. And do you get tired trying to defend? What
it's
the Black Panther
completely
Party
exhausting. Yeah. Well, and the thing I think is, like, I'm so tired. And I'm like, this isn't even directly affecting me. Like, if I think I'm tired, like, like, I don't even feel like I have the right to say I'm exhausted. I do think I have been thinking about how happy I am that I don't have to argue with my parents or my family. Like, we are all on the same page. But I definitely have. So, like, the family I married into, like, is mostly silent, but there's definitely, like, offshoots that I'm just like, and, well, that's the other thing is, like, they're not saying anything. Like, I don't, like, I know exactly, like, I know what they think. And I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, I did accidentally start a fight on my Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Mostly because I was trying to avoid starting a fight on someone else's Facebook who pissed me off. And I was like, rather than comment on her thing, I'm just going to post my own thing. And apparently I pissed her off anyway. And she, like, started there is the longest thread maybe on any Facebook post I've ever had, based on just her, like, not only, like, stating her totally ignorant point of view, but refusing to acknowledge or understand any of the people who came to, like, and I was like, for my stuff, I was like, I tried to be as diplomatic as I possibly could. Like, anytime I wanted to say you, I said we. It's like, we, like, us white people. And it did not matter. Like, not, like, she said the same thing to Megan that she said to me. And I was like, oh, so you're not listening. Like, like, at that point, I just tapped out. I was like, I can't, it's not worth it. If you're not going to listen to anything I say, you've made up your mind. Like, why even come start this fight on my Facebook?
Right.
So, yeah, I understand, but, like, my understanding barely scratches the surface. Like, because it's exhausting, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't affect me. So I can only imagine how you guys feel. Like,
it affects you because you care, which is good. It affects you because you care. You know,
yeah.
that other individual doesn't affect her at all, except it's an inconvenience. Leave it alone. They got what they deserve, or whatever her opinion is. But I can't imagine it being far from that. You know what I mean? If they would have complied, everything would be okay. Blah blah blah. Listen to the cops.
We've gotten a little off subject here.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No worries. So back to Black Panther. What were we? Oh, next we were talking about what Hoover did and local law enforcement did to purposefully and intentionally undermine the Black Panthers whenever they could, right? That was our next talking point, Micah.
Or we could do survival programs. It doesn't matter what order we say it in. I don't know why I said that.
Well, I think sort of since we were just talking about, like, it's justifiable because maybe let's talk about Hoover. And maybe a lot of what Hoover did is still affecting us, right? Maybe a lot of that mentality is still ingrained in how police treat people of color. So, in my research is I found that was he seriously considered the Black Panthers a complete and total threat to the American way of life. They were going to destroy us, as far as he was concerned. And, like, I sort of, like, to be fair, that was their goal. Their goal was to overthrow the government, but not in the way that he, like, latched onto it and, like, right? So I thought, in a lot of the, what's the word? The Freedom of Information Act. So a lot of those memos and the discourse, you can now get online and you can read through all of that. Just so you know, if you're gonna do it, it's a lot. A lot. It was hard for me to get through, like, the little bits and pieces that I got there. I know Micah said she was going through it as well, and it's
hard.
Um, so, yeah, Micah, what did you find that you thought was really interesting about what the FBI did, Hoover as the director, specifically to undermine the Black Panther Party?
There was one person specifically, Rodney Barnett, who is not someone I've heard of. He was the founder of the Compton chapter of the Panthers, and during when the Freedom of Information Act happened, he requested his file. His file was 500 pages long. It documented his whereabouts. It interviewed every employer he ever had. It interviewed his high school teacher, his neighbors, all of his siblings, and then it had like notes of like when he got on airplanes and where he was going. And it's a one person.
Well, it's like when I was looking through it, like, because he's like in the movies when the FBI is following somebody, right? You like see those pictures, but like those pictures are in the file. And this is clearly a picture taken from a distance as they're like exiting a building or getting into a car. I'm like, oh my, that shit really happened. It was kind of like like my brain was just like, that's something that happens in the movie. Like go through these files and be like, oh no, they really like they did this. It was kind of crazy for me. I thought there was one that was really interesting that I read is that as part of one of their programs, they would hand out their newspaper or sell their newspaper to people who were there to get food or participate in their programs. And there was a cartoon. They said that the Black Panthers rejected. Like somebody brought it in. And they were like, no, we're not going to put that in there. The FBI got a hold of it, tweaked it, and made it like more aggressive, and then handed it out to people as Black Panther propaganda. And in order to scare people away from supporting their programs that they were doing. And I thought that was crazy. Like, it was just felt like that's a lot. That's a lot of effort, I felt like, to put into
Discrediting?
Huh?
Discrediting?
Yeah, into discrediting someone. It was
Very
just,
Orwellian.
huh?
Very Orwellian.
Yes, very Orwellian.
And also the like trying to get like factions to fight with each other. So they're like spreading rumors essentially. Just kind of bananas.
Well, isn't there and I know there's a movie coming out. I did not do the research, so correct me if I'm wrong. But wasn't there an FBI plant that
Yeah.
Hoover actually got in and was close to like I believe Fred Hammond, if it wasn't the Chicago chapter, right?
I think
It's one of his bodyguards, I think.
Yeah, like a right hand man, like really close, and they flipped him to be an informant and try to disrupt.
it was so funny. So after like not funny, but interesting. I was reading through like all of these documents, and not all of them, but a lot of them I was reading through. And Hoover does use the term Black Messiah. So I thought that the fact that they named the movie that's coming out,
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, like, now I really want to see it because you must have done your research.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to see that movie. But is anything else on Hoover and the Black Panthers? And so what I was gonna say is I think that the way they sort of destroyed them and discredited them, I think has left a lasting impression on how we treat Black movements, right? I think that's why people have a weird distrust for Black Lives Matter and like are constantly trying to figure out like where's the sneaky thing that's going on here. I see a lot of that on my Facebook anyway. I don't know about you guys, but I see a lot of that on Facebook where they're, discrediting or blah,
I have my own personal views on it.
But I think it's really interesting. I wonder if the way the Panthers were treated has by the government has had a lasting effect on how we see these movements when they come up. Does that make sense?
That's not something I thought about. Like, I definitely think what Hoover told Americans about the Black Panther Party has lasted, but it didn't occur to me that that is now how, like, a first reaction to other movements.
Not from myself personally, but for our parents maybe, and some other people who were more knowledgeable about it, and maybe either sought history or did the knowledge for themselves to find out about the party. This episode has made me research and educate myself, but before today, it was all hearsay, what have you, movies, militants was the thought process, but I did not realize all the good things that they were responsible for. As far as the BLM goes, I think it's a great statement. Not really a supporter of the organization because it's not homegrown. I think it's a way for invested people in major corporations and the government to control the narrative of the movement, and I will leave it at that. I don't think it's homegrown by the people. I think it's organized and structured, and therefore can be moved into where somebody may want it to go. That's my perception of it. Sans Black Panther Party, but I do get what you're saying, Megan. That it's certainly because what other movements have happened? I mean, the whole me thing before with Colin Kaepernick. Just 4 years it took for him to be ostracized for doing the same thing that everybody is so embracing now. And I wonder if that Black Panther Party has, he had the big afro, although he was taking even a non-verbal, it's just me. But, his socks were kind of, the pig socks or whatever were kind of militant with the afro and everything, and him embracing his blackness, if you will. Very well could have been seen as a Black Panther militant type of appearance and stance, and can put off a league of majority white owners, plus you've got everybody else involved. And it's funny what 4 years can make. And he still doesn't have an opportunity, but that's beside the point. Black Panther, certainly perception could have played a big role in how that was negatively perceived versus the at least tolerance of it today.
So I like that you mentioned the good segue. So positive things that the Black Panthers did and within their community. So I thought super interesting that they were testing for sickle cell before the government before general medical science realized that sickle cell was a thing that affected the Black communities, and they were testing people for it. So I thought that was sort of mind blowing to me, that a community organization, an organization outside of science and medical and all of this, had the wherewithal to research and study and take that and run with it. I thought that was really impressive.
Oh, that's fantastic. But a lot of the programs, we were talking about affirmative action earlier, and I think the Black Panther Party is responsible in affirmative action in, if nothing more, just wanting, the opportunities to be mandated for the Black community. I think they're responsible for that. We know that they're responsible for the breakfast programs that extends in not only communities, but specifically in schools, things of that nature, elementary and on in the high school.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting that they were the first to do that. Mm-hmm. It was one of, Ben Hoover was like, they're feeding children. How dare they? But now that's a thing, right? If your kid is school aged, you can drop your kid off and they can get free breakfast before school starts. And that, I think now in our society today, I take that for granted, or like, what, why wouldn't you feed children? So the idea that there was a point where, if you came to school and you were hungry, too bad.
Right.
But how are you going to learn if you're hungry? How are you going to learn?
I used to be so jealous of the kids who got breakfast at school, because like I had like boring food and they got like pancakes and stuff.
I remember that. I'm like, ooh, pancakes. I had cereal for breakfast.
It smelled so good.
Oh, yes. The cafeteria always smelled of syrup. I loved it in the morning. Like, I had a Pop-Tart on my way out the door.
Tired of these Cheerios.
I think my favorite social program was in Oakland. There was a group of senior citizens who had been mugged, and they went to the cops and asked for a self-defense class. The cops said, fuck you, presumably. So they went to the Black Panthers, and the Black Panthers taught these people self-defense to fend off muggers.
Right on.
Which is such a, never would have guessed.
For all the negativity that they get for, being militant or whatever, it really was a forced reaction to an oppressive police force and politicians who were not representing the communities that they came from. And so they just took it upon themselves to better their community, although militantly, and that in turn turned into some violent acts, unfortunately. But the initial cause and what they were about, outside of the whole overthrow of the government thing, was actually pretty cool. It's just take care of our own that's around us, because nobody else, it's like we're forgotten. You know what I mean? We're disposable, we're expendable, they don't care about our living conditions, our way of life. So let's better it for ourselves. And I think that's a great premise.
And weirdly, that's the bare minimum, and that freaked out the FBI so badly that they just had to shut it down.
Right.
We talked about last week, the idea was that if the Black Panther Party could supply all this stuff and the government couldn't, then the people would rise up and ask their government to provide healthcare and to provide free food. And so I think that's why Hoover was so freaked out. He was like, oh, they're going to get this idea that they can get these things, and they're going to demand it from the government, and terrible things will happen, I guess.
And then what will anarchy in the streets if we feed people?
Oh my gosh.
We're a tactic.
Poor people. Give them proper housing. What a concept.
I'll say that one I really, I was sort of here and there on the one about housing. It's like, yes, those houses, and I guess because I read the book, I'm hearing her talk about those, because I've never lived in those. I've seen them. I've never lived in one. I imagine they're horrible.
I suspect in New York and such, it's probably even worse.
Right. You think about it. So, I sort of, was like, well, you can't just take somebody's building. But at the same time, I wonder if maybe one of these stances, and I didn't see it anywhere in my research, but if maybe that was part of the whole tenant thing, where it's you can't, they have to have running water, and they have to, you have to, if you're going to run a building, then these things have to be there. I wonder if the Black Panthers had any effect on the housing that was there. I don't know. I didn't see anything particularly, but really hard. There's a lot of information out there, kids. So if you found something that we didn't find, please tell me. I want to know. I want to know all of the things. Educate me.
I mean, what I was going to say about housing and stuff, and again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I only know, like, my bubble and, like, some things I've heard of, but I think, like, it doesn't, like, even now, people aren't living in, like, livable conditions. So yeah, maybe some of the things that existed improved, but like that's our whole thing is like, oh, you're gonna build another apartment complex here where we need housing, and each apartment's gonna be like $1,000 a month. Like,
Right.
it's not like they won't find people for that, but like we need affordable just in Dallas. Like we need affordable housing for families. Like we don't need more insanely expensive apartments.
And yet they keep going up.
I know.
Well, developers create jobs. Those jobs pay taxes. The development of the apartments pay taxes. And those apartments taxes generated are probably more expensive than homeowners. And so running in circles at that point.
Yep. Micah, did we have anything else on the agenda? I don't have mine.
I think just like the question of like, what was your favorite thing that you learned?
Okay.
Because there's so many different fascinating aspects to this.
There's so many. Let's start with Joe. Joe, what's your favorite thing, or like?
I think my favorite thing that I learned was the storming of the Sacramento Capitol building. You know, in response to, and again, I'm not sure, Milfordville.
Mm-hmm. Was the Milford?
Where they were proposing not to allow anyone to carry guns in a public place, but I do feel that it was obviously pinpointed for keeping the Black Panther Party specifically, but minorities in general, from.
Yeah, I don't remember. There was I read somewhere, like, you know, its hidden name, and its hidden name was basically like, keep poor people from carrying guns. But I don't remember.
But they stormed the building.
That was like its hidden, you know, like Obamacare. Like that was its side name.
Yeah. But anyway, they stormed the building. It ended up with non-violent issues or what have you. But they came in there armed and probably aggressive a little bit. But that was my favorite thing, just that in that climate that they were bold enough, like they have the right, we have the right, we're going to exercise our right and push the envelope. Let's see how far they're going to take it, because we're gonna stand up for our rights. That was cool to me.
I agree. I thought that was really cool, especially because like it's a public hearing. You know, the public is allowed to be there. And I mean, it says something about the government.
Yeah.
Like, you can be here, but not if you're gonna like talk and like, no, just stand there quietly and applaud us for doing the great job that we're doing. You're gonna come be disruptive. No, we don't want you in here. You have to leave.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting also. How about you, Elizabeth?
Oh, so I thought about this like for the last 48 hours because I have a really hard time. Like as soon as you try to pinpoint me, I can't think of anything. Because I was fascinated by like the whole thing. Like I said, I didn't know that much about it, but like I loved the sense of camaraderie. I loved finding out for sure that it's not just like, it's not an anti-white organization. Like they wanted everybody. Shoot. And I was, actually, as I was saying that, I was like, well, maybe it's like the Rainbow Coalition, but I don't actually know that much about that. But just the inclusion of like everybody who is disenfranchised at this point. That was really, like, it was really, I guess that's my favorite part, is like just everybody coming together. Actually, so a second thing was also unrelated to actually what the Black Panthers did, but was talking to my dad about it today and telling him that like we were doing research, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he was like, "Yeah, they're like, you know, they just made the mistake of believing that the Second Amendment actually also applied to Black people." It's like, like that was one of those things. Was like, I realized like my parents at least and I are on the same page, and that was a really good moment for me. But yeah, I don't think there's one standout moment other than like the social programs. Like that's something I'm behind all the time. So
How about you, Micah?
I think my favorite was actually the teaching the elderly to take care of themselves. As like a side note, if you need a rabbit hole to fall down, there's also this whole side of people in Hollywood who supported the party.
Yeah.
There's a couple of movies, and there was a really famous actress who donated money, and the FBI pushed her pretty hard, and she ended up committing suicide. Or maybe it was homicide, if you want to get into conspiracy bullshit, too.
I didn't do that. I sort of purposefully avoided the Hollywood rat hole. It was very tempting, but I was like, stay focused. But that's interesting. Now I will go down that rabbit hole. So I think for me, and I really wish, like Elizabeth was saying, so I hope soon to talk to my mom and my dad about this because they were around. So it was really interesting to me that even though Hoover was doing all of these things, I think ABC or someone did a poll, and amongst the Black community, they still had a huge, like, a lot, people were still behind them, even through the smear campaign and all of, like, the people who they were helping were still very much behind the party. And, I thought that was really interesting. I mean, it was all really interesting. Because like I said, when we started, you know, the Black Panthers are scary and they hated white people. And so to like get in and do the research and, you know, they weren't a perfect party. Nobody's perfect. But they had a lot of really good things that they were aiming for. And that was really cool to find out. And then I had a quote, and this is from Martin Luther King, but I feel like it is, it sort of fits with the Black Panther Party also. So freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. And that's what they were doing.
Right.
They were demanding their freedom and their rights. And I think that speaks a lot to what's going on now. You know, people are demanding to be treated fairly. So that's my 2 cents. Oh, no, do we have a topic picked for next time?
We'll
Nope.
figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We're open to ideas, Facebook people and YouTubers. Give us some ideas. What do you want to know about? What do you want us to talk about? We're here for you. Alright, so I guess that ends our video for this evening. I hope you guys learned something new and interesting, and maybe you'll read the book that we read, or you'll get on the internet and you'll do some research about the Black Panther Party. In the meantime, don't be a racist and wash your hands.